Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you here. And today we will be exploring how accessibility and neurodivergence shape the way we work, learn, and design, and how we can create equitable spaces that support every brain and every ability. Our panelists today are Nat Hawley from Divergent Thinking, Elliot Natali from BIT, James Warnken, and myself from BIT. Let's get into it. Mike, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Greetings from wherever you are on the spinning blue ball. My name is Mike Hess. I am Executive Director and Founder here at Blind Institute of Technology, BIT. We are a nonprofit that supports all career seekers with disabilities, and we have programming that supports you wherever you are in your journey. We are joined today with Nat from Divergent Thinking. Please, Nat, take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. And honestly, a pleasure to be here today. For those of you who may have not guessed, I'm from the UK and I run an organization called Divergent Thinking, which is all around neurodiversity. In a nutshell, I support organizations to be more neuro-inclusive, to better not just accept difference, but to appreciate it. And as part of my model, I support people, members of the public, to better understand their own brains and to really shout about their success. As to why I got involved in this area, I'm neurodivergent myself with dyslexia, dyspraxia, and autism. So it's an area that's very close to my heart, but I also have a master's in neuroscience. So it's that lovely lived experience as well as professional experience. And I just want to do a quick shout out to my old boss, Danny, is in the chat. So good to see some UK backup. But honestly, can't wait to begin this discussion today.
Fun. Thanks, guys. So now we're going to start off with some introductions. Elliot, do you want to start us off? You're muted.
Sorry. Story of my life lately.
It happens.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elliot Natali. I am the Academy Director here at BIT. I was diagnosed with ADD at a young age. My joke is that I was diagnosed with ADD when ADD and ADHD were two separate diagnoses, and now they're just one. And I also have dyslexia.
Great. James?
Yep. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. My name is James Warnken. I am the lead accessibility instructor and digital accessibility SME at BIT, and I have been losing my vision progressively over the last 19 years with Stargardt's. So kind of a blend of near and far-sightedness, not able to read your standard 12-point font, but also after about 10 feet, the world gets pretty blurry for me. So excited to bring the blind, low vision perspective today.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Elliot. My name is Amy McCaw, and I am the Marketing and Communications Manager here at BIT. I live in Chicagoland, and I've been here about 2 years handling everything marketing from social media to events and branding. My background includes marketing in both medical device and financial industries. And I have been diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder, anxiety, and some ADHD. All right, so to start our webinar off, next slide. We're going to be asking our panelists a handful of questions to answer. Our first question is, what's one change, big or small, that can make the workplace more supportive for blind, low vision, and neurodivergent professionals? I have some severe ADHD. So for me, it's when information is kept very simple, whether I'm reading an email or visiting a website or joining a meeting. I need to know what to expect and like where to find things. For people managing their ADHD like me, it really reduces surprises and clutter when things are just organized. When something follows like a consistent pattern, I don't have to waste the energy figuring out, how to engage with it. I can focus on exactly what it's saying. Elliot, what's one big or small change that can make the workplace more supportive for you?
Uh, I'm very similar to you in that it helps when things are definitely compartmentalized. When I have a large document to read or a spreadsheet that I have to look at, I need that extra time to really to sit down and read it. I find that uh, probably a little bit because of my dyslexia, but also for my ADD, that it's best for me that I have the document read out loud for me. I have my computer do that. And so one of the functions my computer can do is take that text of a document, speak it aloud for me, and I find that I process the information better when it's spoken as opposed to when I'm trying to read it with my own eyes. I find that when I'm reading it, I tend to get tired very easily and overwhelmed. So having it read is definitely helpful. And so in the
Yeah,
workplace, allowing me to do that is really helpful.
great. How about you, James?
I think for me, because my vision has changed over time, I've had to constantly adapt and be flexible as an individual. I think when an organization themselves is flexible and open to adapting and changing and creating or providing or allowing alternatives, to me, like that is one of the keys to success because today I might need 20-point font. My vision, I could wake up tomorrow and it'd be worse, and now I need 24. Do I have the ability to adjust and make those micro adjustments myself or to request those to happen? I've heard lots of stories of people making what sound like very simple requests within the workplace, and organizations just aren't flexible. They won't allow it to be even slightly modified to help a user. So I would say just general flexibility and adaptation to allow the user to meet whatever needs they have.
Sure. How about you, Nat?
Well, I think they're all really good answers. And I think just for the audience, maybe to give a bit more context about why would we even kind of join these two different worlds together? And I think a lot of the time people think, making adjustments is really challenging or difficult. And actually, they don't really need to be. And what you will find is most adjustments that might benefit one part of the population will also benefit another part of the population. So I think maybe this question is more about how can we make adjustments which help as many people as possible, even if the reasons might be quite different. So while visual impairment and being neurodivergent are on the surface completely different, I would say that sometimes while the reason why the difficulty is different, the output is still quite similar. So for me, really simple, it's optical character recognition, OCR. Now, if you've not heard of that, when you have like a PDF and you kind of convert your Word document, sometimes it's saved as like a flat document, which is like a flat image. And as Elliot was mentioned, he uses software which kind of reads things back to him. Me too. I can read, but this helps me just concentrate, comprehend so much better. And James, I don't know for yourself, but you might again have your computer read things out to you because maybe you're struggling to see it and it might the auditory be a lot more clearer. So you've
Yeah.
got these two things that doesn't matter if you have visual impairments or if you're neurodivergent, having it in auditory helps for both people. But when things are saved or given to you as, say, like an image, our software cannot read it. But if you save it in a format where you can actually highlight things and then your computer can read it back to you, that's a really good universal adjustment that helps people who have visual challenges, people who are neurodivergent, and doesn't disadvantage someone who doesn't have any of those difficulties or differences.
Sure. Thanks, Nat. Okay, next slide. Our next question is, where do needs differ, like screen reader verbosity, motion animation, color use, etc.? And how can we meet both without trade-offs? James, what are your thoughts on this?
That's a big question to unpack because we're now looking at multiple technologies trying to consider multiple different user perspectives all in one setting, which is exactly how we should approach it. We shouldn't be dividing the audience based on their disability. You get this experience because you're blind. You get a different experience because you're deaf. We should be trying to combine them all into one. And when we think about, for me, it's the visual experience and the non-visual experience. From a non-visual perspective, that's the screen reader, the auditory technology, converting everything that we see into audio. And so for me, that structure, that's semantics, that's order, that's logic, just making things intuitive, make things make sense. If you were talking to a friend on the phone, describing it back to them, that's what we're sort of aiming for in a general sense. And from a visual perspective, with things like color, animations, motion, for me personally, I like all of that because I'm more of a creative personality type, but I can also understand that when we start to add more than a handful of colors, or we start to put too much movement, or the movement is too fast, that very quickly becomes distracting and disorienting and confusing for users with visual impairments, users with cognitive, or users without disabilities. Just for general conversation, there are a lot of people that don't have any diagnosis that find things like that to be very distracting when a page is too busy or too noisy and has just too much going on to try to focus on one thing at a time. And Mike, I'm going to pull you into the conversation here because you always talk about that focus on one thing at a time, and there really is no such thing as multitasking. I forget like the exact way you describe it, but that's very true from a digital experience perspective, whether it's a meeting, it's a website, it's a document, it's an application, all of those experiences included.
Sure, and I'll cannonball into this real quick from a neuroscience perspective. We know that what makes human beings human is our frontal cortex, and we know for a fact that our brains can only process one attention-rich input at a time. And so, as we for the audience, as we were working with Nat Divergent Thinking, and we're coming up with these topics. What's great about how Nat approaches education from an employer perspective in BIT, again, two organizations, two separate continents. The focus and the content are so similar. And we very much focus on this neuroscience where like one attention rich input at a time is how human beings are designed. And yet that concept fits this topic of education and how we approach getting that material out there in an accessible way. And an accessible way, if we're focused on one attention rich input at a time, we can truly meet our audience needs, regardless of it's from a sensory perspective or a neurodiverse perspective. Nat, I would love to hear your take on all of that.
Well, I mean, from like a neuroscience perspective, I can definitely back you up on the fact that our brains aren't just terrible at multitasking, they can't. It's kind of like a light switch, turning it off and on, but really, really fast. So fast that your brain can't really perceive that it's ever off or on. It always looks like it's on. And that's kind of what multitasking is like. Our brain just switches. Now, if someone takes a little bit longer to process for whatever reason, then that's why there might be delays in comprehension. Now, kind of looking at the question, I think it's a really interesting question because I get asked a very similar question when it comes to neurodiversity all the time. Because what is neurodiversity? It's different ways of thinking. So you've got some people who might think with, say, an profile that is similar to someone with autism or dyspraxia or dyslexia. So if we were to make consistent, universal adjustments that equally benefit everyone, well, that's just not possible a lot of the time. And a lot of the time, they can be contradictory of each other. So then some people will go think, well, maybe we need to compromise then. No, I don't think you need to compromise. I think you need to find win-win solutions. And so the way I would typically go about it is, well, actually, let's give you an example first. So from my understanding, a lot of people who have visual impairments benefit from high contrast. So, the whites and the blacks are very distinct in order to make sure, like, what's the difference. Whereas those with dyslexia often can struggle with high contrast, and it can make words harder to focus on and decipher. So more kind of pastely colors can work. That's an example of when a universal approach may not be appropriate. And I think, how do we go about getting the best for both people? It's about being customizable. I would say the first things first is making sure that everything that benefits everyone or doesn't disadvantage everyone is like the baseline, the thing that we make sure is there to begin with. And then after that, that is when we do the reasonable adjustments and we allow things to be able to be customized and changed per person. So yeah, I would say ultimately it comes down to allowing people to have choice rather than needing to request choice.
Great, thanks, Nat. Elliot, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, to Mike's point about how, and to Nat's point about how you really only focus on one thing at a time, and Nat was explaining it as a light switch switching back and forth. I find myself oftentimes struggling to focus on one thing, and so what I've actually learned to do for myself, and I don't know how many people do this or not, but for me, I can almost short circuit my ADD by listening to music. And so, even though I'm focusing on that one thing, and I really need to focus on this one task or whatever it is that I'm doing, by blasting music, to be honest with you. And I have the benefit of being able to work from home, but when I was in the office, I would often throw on headphones in order to do that. It almost short circuits my tendency to think about other things, or as I'm reading, my mind goes off on this tangent based on something that I've just read. And so having that music in the background or flooding my brain with other stimulus allows me to focus on that one thing that I'm needing to focus on. And so not so much as far as what's in the question, as far as color and animation and motion, but allowing myself to allow the distractions in order to focus, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Great hack.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. For our third question, which practices reduce cognitive load and aid visual access, like chunking, plain language, reading order, alt text, captions? For me, it's about keeping things very simple. When there's either too much text or words that require a dictionary, my brain just goes into overdrive. So, like, writing in plain language really helps me take things one step at a time. So it just goes back for me to organization. It's just easier to understand. How about you, James?
Everything you said can play to that experience from putting closed captions on your audio content, to using your headings logically and structurally, to putting alt text on your images so that for those who can't see them, they can still understand how they relate and play into the content, why you as an author chose to put that image there, because it was a choice. Everything we do from a design and a development perspective is a choice. From an organization, the way we create our products and services and structure our environments, like all of those are choices that when we approach them with intention, when we're intentional about why are we doing what we're doing? And when we start to consider different abilities, whether that be blind, low vision, deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, those with physical reactions like seizures, it's actually a lot easier to incorporate and avoid some of those common barriers or challenges, like writing at too technical of a language for your audience. If you're in industrial engineering, that might be a little bit more difficult, but when you're in education and when you're building your public facing website, you probably want to stay at like a 5th to 7th grade reading level. You want to avoid acronyms. You want to explain and provide definitions for your technical terms that you have to use. There's a lot that sort of packs into that intentional approach, but it's really just a matter of asking yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? And is it creating a barrier for someone else?
Great. Thanks, James. How about you, Elliot?
The first thing that comes to mind when I'm reading this with reducing cognitive load and visual access is a pet peeve I have of a website. When a website is designed in a certain way that prevents the use of something called reader mode. And so you go to a website and the website is loaded with ads and colorful pictures and all these different things, and ultimately you want to just read the content, and um, uh, or the website is designed in a way that actually prevents you from highlighting the text or selecting the text, and so disabling those functions uh, really hinders my ability to focus on whatever the website is trying to show me. So reader mode strips out all of those ads and visual elements and just gives you the body of text that I could easily have. I could easily read or have read to me.
I can see how that would be frustrating not having that enabled.
Whenever I run into that from a low vision perspective, those are usually like signals to my brain to like just tune out, to like
Yeah. Yeah.
disconnect, to disengage, because there's just too much going on. Like a virtual presentation, if you have 3 paragraphs of text on your slide, I'm probably just zoned out daydreaming because I can't read it anyway. So I'm either active listening or just completely zoned out. There really is no in between.
How about you, Nat?
Well, it's really interesting what you've all said. You know, particularly James, when you mentioned how we would typically write at a kind of lower grade level for people to understand. Now, sometimes I think there's like a misunderstanding that that's because maybe people do not know the words you're talking about. I would say, while that may be the case, most people will know the words you're talking about. Actually, let's give people some credit. We're pretty smart in general, most of us. We know what things mean, but it's not the purpose of using big words because we can use big words. I think it's about asking ourselves, like, what is the purpose that we want to convey here? Do we want people to walk away with this knowledge, to absorb this knowledge? And by using words which are more manageable, more broken down, more kind of concise in bullet points, it's not because people struggle with understanding it, given it enough time. It just means that we can't absorb the information as fluidly. And you also mentioned something about how, you know, everything we do is very intentional. And that kind of brought me back to years ago. I used to be in work in the media. And in movies, there's this thing called like an auteur. So people like Stanley Kubrick or Alfred Hitchcock, where if you watch one of their films, you know it's one of their films because every single thing is so intentionally done. And I think the same should be when we're writing. Is there a reason we've used that paragraph? Or is there a reason that font or that color? Everything we do should be in aid of telling a greater story. And I find that's what we can do to help cognitive overload. The next kind of second part I would say to that is that understanding why we get overloaded. No one likes all these adverts that we see, so having things that remove those ads would benefit everyone. And when you look at the similarities between people who are neurodivergent and those with visual impairment, a thing that we'll see that we both share in common is this world wasn't made for us. This world wasn't made for people with visual impairments or who are blind. It wasn't made for those who are neurodivergent. So it stands to reason that if there aren't adjustments in place, we are going to burn out eventually. And I think understanding that and making things accessible for everyone would be the ultimate goal. Like I would probably ask, if we got rid of like bright flashing adverts, if we got rid of clunky text, if we changed the vocabulary to be easy for everyone to understand, would it disadvantage anyone? I often teach university students or lecturers, and these, some of the smartest people you would ever meet. Yet I still make sure all my presentations are presented in the same concise, bullet pointed format. Because again, this isn't about lack of intelligence. It's more about how effective we are at making our message stick and become kind of encoded into our memory.
Now, I want to jump in here. When we were like practicing and reviewing the questions, I think you said you try to keep your slides to like 7 words maximum, or so, it was some number of words that you try to aim for. I just want to make sure that that gets highlighted in this conversation, because I think a lot of people try to cram everything into their presentation so that you could see it and you hear it, thinking that that's helpful, when we kind of, as educators and trainers, do the opposite.
Well, I'd say if you know your subject well enough, you'll be able to say it in the least amount of words. I think it's a testament to how well the facilitator knows the subject if they can say it concise and punchy. For me, I would say the text on the screen is to provoke my memory, but my role as facilitator is to speak and expand upon things. If someone is busy reading the text, they aren't listening to me, as we've already established. People can't multitask. So I want to make sure that they are listening to me as much as possible. And I can do that by reducing text and visual clutter.
Yeah. Okay, Elliot, this one's for you. What should be the equitable default and what should be user-controlled personalization, like contrast, text size, and motion?
The defaults should always be the use of headers, there's a whole universal design principle. I know, James, you teach this all the time in your course, right? There's a basic standard for everybody, in that there's, we have a traditional font point that is often used, but I think the most important thing is allowing an individual to make changes when they need to make them, right? So a website or that supports different size text allows you to enlarge the text using like the Command plus function or the Control plus function in a browser. Not specifically putting code into a site that prevents the switching of colors or the change in the contrast. I've seen that on quite a few websites and different programs. And so, and oftentimes websites now, so we're all familiar with like light mode and dark mode on websites. And so someone with a vision impairment, it might be easier for them to read it in dark mode. But sometimes websites don't support dark mode. So when you do that, you end up losing all the text, or you lose the important parts of what you're trying to show on that website. So supporting all these modern day functions, I think, has to be the default, and not specifically making a decision that prevents someone to do it because it might be better for your business model or something along those lines.
Okay. James, how about you?
I think the default is just like Elliot said, following those standards and those guidelines and those best practices, whether it's your brand guidelines or it's the WCAG guidelines. Following those, your brand is your brand. It's your identity. You can change it, but you chose the colors and the fonts and the logos for a reason. So following those guidelines is the default, but we live in a world of customization. And so I always advocate when I teach our digital accessibility course or when I'm delivering a train the trainer, that the more control we allow the user to have over their experience, the more accessible that is going to be by default. And we live in a world of customization where every device comes with a screen reader, whether it's Windows or it's Apple. Every smartphone comes with the ability to color invert, to increase the font size. We have all of these things built into our devices, our browsers, our operating systems. And I'm going to bring the big scary word AI into it, where we can use AI now to convert inaccessible into accessible as a user. As an organization, we can do the same thing to get accessible code, to get accessible PowerPoint presentations that AI is generating the images and writing the alt text all in one foul swoop. We live in a world of customization, and users are embracing that. I think organizations are just starting to come around the bend to that idea of we're creating an experience, but ultimately the user is the one experiencing it. They should be able to experience it however they desire. Whether that's dark mode, whether that's large text, whether that's having AI condense your 92-page annual report into a one-paragraph summary, that's all of those are valid options for the user.
Yeah. Nat, how about you?
I guess when it comes to, I guess, the default, like what does that look like? I would say, first of all, question your reasoning for even asking the question. Are we trying to make things default because we feel sorry for people who think differently or see differently, because we think it's fair? And if so, that's nice, I guess, but I don't think that's the best reason to do it. And because ultimately things always come down to the bottom line and money. Some organizations are so big that they are controlled by shareholders that accessibility is going to be lower down the list. Other organizations are tiny and can't afford adjustments that they don't see the purpose into. But when you start looking at how adjustments that people with different needs have always been the foundation blocks to everyday new norms, I think you see the value it has. So, for example, computers, websites used to be quite bulky, and you couldn't change your computer screen, otherwise it would mess up all the font. But originally, we did that for people who had different needs. Now, all our phones can view websites, and they look perfect because they are more adaptable. Other things is, as we said, using voice software. It's kind of become standard practice now that people can get their computer to read back to them. When I talk to my phone, it now writes all my messages, but it doesn't do that because I've got a fancy app for accessibility. It does that as a default. So what you'll notice is that when kind of social shifts change on what people deem as the standard, organizations are often playing catch up. But if you want to be more proactive and set yourself up for success, I would say look at what people are doing for accessibility, because what we do for accessibility reasons now, I guarantee you will become the default for everyone, regardless of their abilities going forward.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy, I'm gonna jump in here real quick on that too for all of this great guidance, because ultimately recognizing that father time is undefeated and we all age, and as we age, like our cognitive will be it'll diminish, our eyesight will diminish, our hearing will diminish, our motor skills will diminish. So accessibility isn't something that's just for someone like me who was born blind, right? It wasn't for somebody like Nat who is neurodivergent. Like, this is like, accessibility, as Nat and James and Elliot are articulating here, like accessibility is really for everyone, because the digital, like we're only becoming more reliant on digital environments. And so as we age, again, father time is right there with us, and our bodies will diminish. And so accessibility defaults have to be the norm.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Okay, our next slide. Our final question. In what ways can AI reduce cognitive load? Like summarizing, organizing, filtering content. I can start us off on this one. Being bipolar, I second guess my tone all the time. It's always in the back of my mind. So with I can feed my email copy into it and then say, is my tone too harsh? Can you help me out with my tone here? It'll normally give me tips on how to improve my email, how to revise it. Also with ADHD, as you can imagine, my brain drifts. It's just constant. It's going left, it's going right. I use transcripts so I can go back and look at what I might have missed, and that keeps me from feeling like I'm behind on things. Another thing is that I get some racing thoughts. So sometimes it's hard for me to separate what's real and what's just in my head. I'll start wondering, was that comment directed at me or was it directed at someone else? AI really helps me take a step back and see things more clearly. James, how about you?
It's an everyday thing. You brought the big
Yeah.
scary word back up. AI is all around us. Mike, you and I have had dozens of conversations. AI has been all around us for years. It's just now becoming mainstream. People are getting to use it as an individual to write code, to build apps, to answer emails, to automate most of their lives at this point. And so whether that is using it in a work setting to write accessible code or create accessible documents and PowerPoint presentations, or it's someone from my end using AI to create bookmarklets that change the color contrast on a website when I go to a website and it's gray text on a dark blue background that I can't read. Instead of not being able to use that website, I've used AI to create bookmarklets that allow me to choose what color I want your website to be in. I've used AI to help with some of our instructional materials to come up with other examples, to do a lot of different things. I just delivered an AI best practices training to all of our apprentices 2 weeks ago. I used AI to create the training on how to use AI. So like there really is no shortage beyond curiosity and creativity, especially when it comes to using AI for accessibility. Because what I've learned over the years with all of the people that we've worked with and trained is people aren't intentionally making inaccessible experiences. They're not aware. And what better way to become aware, to educate, to learn than to ask something that's going to give you a very concise answer rather than a search engine that generates 1.7 million results for you. And now you have to figure out which one to trust, which one's real, which one is the most relevant, most up to date. AI cuts a lot of that out for us, making it easier than it's ever been to learn, to upskill, to explore, to experiment. You may not even know how to write code. You can build a whole app and make it accessible, all at the same time, thanks to the advances that we have with AI and machine learning and automation and all of these other technologies coming together all at once.
Yeah, amazing. Elliot, how about you? What ways do you think AI reduces cognitive load?
Big time, especially when it comes to researching things. And whenever you're researching a new topic or a new subject, when you when you're Googling or searching the web for things, I mean, you get thrown, at least 10 links, right? If not more. but you really don't know if that page that you're being linked to is actually what you need, right? So having, in the past, you'd have to read the whole thing, right? Or you'd have to sit there and really spend time diving deep into it. Nowadays, you can ask the AI, is this really what I'm looking for? Or summarize this page for me. And that'll give you an idea of whether or not you should spend your time reading it. And so, I mean, even when it comes to writing emails, I will find myself now throwing my raw response thoughts into an AI without having to focus on how to write this email professionally. I will throw uh, just how I would speak to someone if 'cause we all know how speaking to someone is totally different than writing an email to someone, right? So I can just speak my random raw thoughts into this AI, and the AI can help me formulate that into an actual professional email. Of course, it always makes mistakes, right? And so you have to reread it and make sure it's not making assumptions and completely botching the message that you're trying to deliver. But it allows you to just focus on the task um, and then deliver the message that you want to deliver.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. Nat, I'm curious to hear your answer to this.
Well, while you were all saying that, I was thinking that maybe AI is the kind of ultimate uh, assistive technology. And then I thought, no, it's not. I think still having like universal design and base level support is still absolutely the best thing we can do. But AI is for that maybe 10-20%, that safety net, or things that maybe our individuality doesn't quite match up with every organization's baseline. So I don't want us to get to a point where organizations think, I don't really need to make these adjustments anymore because AI will sort that out for them. That being said, AI has been an absolute game changer for me. I think there is still a lot of stigma towards it, but I think that's maybe more due to fear, which, let's face it, is where most stigma comes from. I think assistive technology has always kind of opened up areas which were inaccessible to people in the past. I know for myself, who's extremely dyslexic, the fact I would not be able to run a business today if it wasn't for AI, because there were too many things that my brain wasn't able to do, which was considered a necessity. The other problem I have seen with a lot of assistive technology is that they make one massive assumption, which is always wrong. They assume that you have one core deficit and every other part of you is working top notch. So a good example is when I use my software to like write my emails using my voice, it assumes that I might struggle to write, but it also assumes that I can speak confidently, that my grammar is intact, that I'm not mixing words up. I talk like a Dr. Seuss character sometimes. My words come out in odd orders. So even if my computer can dictate my voice, it still sounds like gobbledygook. But AI doesn't make those assumptions that you are perfect in every other way apart from one area. It will say, well, maybe this person may struggle in this area, that area, that area, and it will automatically fill in the gaps. So I think AI has allowed me to focus less on navigating my comorbidity, my collection of challenges, and allowed me more to be like an artist. I often kind of explain AI to people like those who do not use AI, neurotypical people, or those with traditional abilities, they're like painters. They start with a blank canvas and then they add to it over time, growing. Now, as a neurodivergent person, I don't have the paints. I don't know why. No one ever delivered them to me. But instead, AI has allowed me to be a sculptor. It's given me this massive block of material, and my job is now to edit it away and to kind of craft it down into the thing that I want it to be. So I guess to summarize, AI is great. It's allowed people to have access to the world in a way they've never had access to before. but I say it with a word of caution. That this shouldn't mean that organizations should kind of take the foot off the pedal when it comes to creating baseline adjustments for everyone.
And Nat, I'm just going to re-emphasize what you just said there. Like, you cannot take the people out of accessibility, because that's why we do accessibility. That's one of the big things that we teach on and train within the academy, is that because of our lived experience, AI is not coming to take our jobs, right? You cannot take the people out of accessibility, because if you're relying on the computer to create that whole experience, there's never any validation behind it. You don't know if it actually works unless you have people involved in the conversation. So while AI is good at getting the bulk of it there, you still need people to come in and make sure that it's actually effective. There's a big conversation and discussion between the words accessibility and usability. Something can be usable without being accessible, and something can be accessible without being usable. We don't want either of those. So
100%.
I appreciate you grounding the conversation. And AI is great, and we should be using it, but we shouldn't be allowing it to do all of the work for us yet.
Yeah, very good. Well, this has just been fascinating. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions when we're done here. But before we head to Q&A, just to wrap things up, next slide. Today really comes down to a few big ideas. Start designing with accessibility from the very beginning, and do it with understanding, not assumptions. And also remember that every brain processes information differently. So build with equity in mind while giving people control to personalize their own experience. And next slide. Okay, and now we can wrap up our webinar with some Q&A. Our contact information is also on this slide for BIT, as well as Divergent Thinking. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to email us, hit us up on our website, LinkedIn DM, whatever you prefer.
Are there any questions in the chat right now that we can give to our panelists
Sure.
for a quick
So
wrap?
there's one, sorry if I missed this because I joined late. How does AI recording transcripts, summary notes, but more importantly, using LLM chats to do data discovery, thus bypassing the website as an interface, even if it is discovering the answers and info from a website as underlying data source or up to date real-time data?
I'm not sure I understand that fully, to be honest.
I'm not sure I do either.
Maybe we could take that offline with that particular
Sure.
person and get clarification. And we'll make sure to get an answer back to you wherever you may be.
I just wanted that last part with like the database instead of the website, getting the information from the AI. I will say that most AIs are starting to share where they're getting their information. So your website might be a source that is linked to in a response in an LLM like ChatGPT. Somebody could very easily land on your website. Thus, it should still be accessible, even if people are just using LLMs to gather information and data within their research process, because you never know who's going to end up there and what assistive technology they might be using.
Oh, well, Seth says you answered that, so that's great. Again, with another kind of food for thought that I had on this area is, I think at the moment, maybe we're living in the golden age of AI being a useful tool for condensing information and for making sure things are synthesized in the right way. And I say that because if you think about how much, at the moment, AI draws its knowledge from information that has been created by people, but going forward, AI is going to be drawing information from AI generated content, which is again created by AI generated content. So we're going to get more and more slop. So unless AI evolves yet again in order to kind of counteract that, I think we are going to have to be far more analytical and far more cautious about whether or not this is accurate data. But as you said, James, AI is getting better, particularly with like Chat GPT and Gemini, in actually saying where the information has come from. And it's no real different from when you look at academic papers. Like, well, I have to do academic papers, and you can't trust your research. You have to go like a breadcrumbs. Like, all right, who got this information? Where did that come from? Where was the original source? So AI is going to have problems. I get it, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be bring any new problems to the table that we haven't already faced in the past.
Here's a good question. What is the panel's thought on the current state of assistive technology, in particular screen readers for visually impaired? James, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Screen readers are getting better every day. I always tell people that just like how we get a new iPhone every year, some of you may have a bright, shiny orange iPhone, but just like we get a new iPhone, we get a big Windows update, we get a big piece of hardware or a new update to the software. The assistive technology is doing the exact same thing. The acceleration of innovation within the technology field has not slowed down at all. In fact, it's just continuing to get faster and faster with AI and machine learning and all of the automation that's available to us. The assistive technology, the screen readers are no different. They're starting to implement AI to try to write alt text when your image doesn't have it. So the corrective techniques is what we call them. They're getting better. But again, as Nat said, that doesn't mean we stop doing it because the assistive technology can. We still need to be bridging and meeting in the middle with our users and their technology because not every user is using the latest version of JAWS. Not every user downloaded the last update that introduced that shiny new feature. Some people just picked it up today, others are 20-year veterans. We need to be mindful of the experience level with the assistive technology that the user has, not just what is this fully capable of doing. Most of us aren't using our smartphones, our computers, our technology to its full capabilities. But I think there's often a misunderstanding with assistive technology that those users are using it to their full capabilities. And that's just not the case with any kind of technology, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another one. How could we make coding and STEM sciences education more accessible for the blind?
More alternatives.
Yeah.
Going back to universal design, Elliot, you mentioned this at the beginning, that those universal design principles have an additional layer called universal design for learning. Multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression and engagement, allowing our users to use those alternatives. Some of us prefer to learn by listening. Some of us prefer to learn by seeing. Others are more hands-on. The more of those learning preferences you can adapt your materials to, the more successful your students will be.
Thanks, James. Here's a good one. How can we change the negative view and stigma around disability and neurodiversity?
I mean, I
Nat,
would
do you want
start.
to take that one? Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
I would
Go
personally-
ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead,
going to say, I can't wait to hear what Nat says about this.
Sorry, I get really passionate about this stuff. I think first of all, terminology is a massive one. Disability sucks. You know, it's so deficit focused. As we were saying in the chat, the kind of social model of, I guess, still disability is far more empowering, rather than seeing someone as faulty of something that someone who is able to kind of work around and find adjustments. See the person as having an alternative experience, a different value that they can add to society. And I think this just really hits home the point about why we're doing today. why are we having a session around neurodiversity and blind together? Well, ultimately, it leads to the same outcome. Because we are different from the majority, we see the world different. And because we see the world different, we have more ideas, we're more likely to come up with innovative thoughts and opinions. And ultimately, that is the only thing that has ever led to true innovation. So I think the thing that's going to move the needle is people valuing us as not as something to accommodate, but something where they can draw value from and see us as equal members of society.
Thanks, Nat.
Couldn't have said it better.
I think we have time for one more question. Any suggestions for getting organizations to understand that less can be more? Visual and auditory overload can lead me to often feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated.
Well, I think that goes back to one of our early questions, and we're talking about attention-rich input. And just to let the audience know, as we were crafting this particular webinar, we originally had all questions on a single slide, and we quickly found out that actually was super confusing for our panelists who were ADHD, that were neurodiverse, that from a blind perspective, low vision perspective, like it was that one slide was noisy. And so then going back to neuroscience again, what makes human beings humans is our frontal cortex, where attention rich input takes place in that processing. If we just realize that when we're delivering content, that a single slide having less to say, so we can focus on that, you're going to engage more people in the audience than if you have a noisy or busy slide. Same thing with websites. If your website is just pure vomit and you're just vomiting words, there are a lot of people that you're not going to engage with because there's too much. So less is more, and that is supported by neuroscience.
I think a really good example that backs up even more is when you look at Apple. You know, Apple is one of the most valuable brands of all time. And when you go to an Apple store, it's minimal, because less is more. And what they do is they make sure that what they do have on offer is the absolute best it can be, opposed to having absolutely everything, which is overwhelming and overstimulating.
Great.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
This is great.
Well,
Nat, I want to
I know-
personally thank you, Nat, for just literally participating with us, partnering with us here at Blind Institute of Technology. Love the fact that again, our common mission, it comes together in an educational format. So thank you very much, Nat. Amy, Elliot, James, for your expertise. Truly appreciate it. Lindy, behind the scenes, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our audience participants. Please don't hesitate to send over any questions, and we'll get back to you virtually.
Likewise, thanks, Mike. Really appreciate to join in with the team today in the discussion, and appreciate everyone for attending and for your amazing questions.
Thanks, everyone.